Hi, I'm Shan Wu with a Under Color of Law hot take on retribution. Just what kind of retribution can be handed out by the Trump regime, particularly through the Justice Department? So Elon Musk called for the punishment of Special Counsel Jack Smith. He was replying to Representatives Jim Jordan and Barry Loudermilk. He was signaling that he wants more than just oversight. They were telling Smith that he needs to preserve all the documents, kind of a silly point. It's not like they weren't going to preserve them. But Elon took the opportunity to talk about how important it was for Smith to be punished. So while those two congressmen may be theoretically talking about oversight, you can take a look at what Representative Luna also thinks about what Smith did. Take a quick listen. We'll talk to you on the other side.
We need to ensure that this never happens to any other candidate for president ever again. And so we have to follow through, see who exactly ordered that, and if it means that we need to bring criminal prosecution, I think that we need to.
So she seems to believe that he was acting unconstitutionally and that criminal charges need to be brought. And that's really the essence of what we want to talk about. Because the Justice Department is the only agency that can actually prosecute United States citizens here. They bring criminal charges. And the question is going to be, with a DOJ that's led by an Attorney General fully committed to doing Trump's bidding, just how bad will that be? Now, we actually now have a supposed nominee for the Attorney General, but listen to what one previous talked about candidate, Mike Davis, had been quoted as saying, very close to Trump and the Trump regime. Mike Davis is a former Supreme Court clerk to Justice Neil Gorsuch, a top Republican lawyer. In a podcast, he kind of went off on a rant directed at New York Attorney General Letitia James. And he said, quote, "Let me just say this to Big Tish James. I dare you to try to continue your lawfare against President Trump in his second term. Because listen here, sweetheart, we're not messing around this time," he was ranting. And this is a quote from him. "We will put your fat ass in prison for conspiracy against rights. I promise you that." Now, taking a look at that, it's not particularly clear what it is that he's talking about in terms of conspiracy against rights. But this was a guy who had been talked about as a potential attorney general, and he's obviously very high up in the Trump regime pecking order. He also had said this about his wishes for Trump's political enemies. This is a quote. "I want to drag their dead political bodies through the streets, burn them, and throw them off the wall. Parens, legally, politically, and financially, of course." So any normal situation, someone who's speaking like that would not be considered for any position of public trust. Again, it's not clear what charges that Davis had in mind. He's also made other threats to bring criminal charges against Liz Cheney, Cassidy Hutchinson, claiming they've obstructed a congressional investigation through their truthful testimony. He, of course, wants to claim that they're lying. And when you look at this kind of situation, let's make sure we now combine that with Matt Gaetz, who's the person that Trump is supposedly putting up for Attorney General. That's what Trump has said. So not only is there zero evidence upon which to open these kinds of criminal investigations for these people, much less sufficient evidence to charge or convict, the motivation that's obviously being expressed here, which is to punish anyone that Trump wants to designate as a political enemy, that motivation also violates the DOJ manual, also known as the Principles of Federal Prosecution. For example, Section 927-260, initiating and declining charges, impermissible considerations, that specifically bars the use of, quote, political associations, activities, or beliefs as a factor in a decision to bring charges or to decline them. Section 985.500 of the manual also requires that federal prosecutors and agents may never select the timing of any action, including investigative steps, criminal charges, or statements, for the purpose of affecting any election or for the purpose of giving an advantage or disadvantage to any candidate or political party. Now, it's quite unclear how these rules would be enforced in the face of an attorney general determined to ignore and violate them. So speaking of attorney generals, there's certainly been a lot of criticism directed at Attorney General Garland for the state of things. I'm among those who've criticized that the pace was too glacial. It made it impossible to get convictions of not only Trump, but convictions of higher-ups who may have helped him. I mean, people in Congress right now. And I raised in a recent piece of mine on MSNBC whether or not people are going to suffer unjust investigations and prosecutions because of Garland's belief that justice must be blind to political realities, regardless of how much those political realities stand in the way of justice. But I think it's time to turn the page away from lambasting Garland. I mean, the mistakes that may have been made are ones we need to correct, not make again, but we're not going to be able to do anything about that right now. Instead, what needs to be focused upon is what can be done to ward off and defend against the weaponization of the Justice Department. So a couple of things. We can push the Democrats in Congress to ask Garland to have the current Office of Legal Counsel reaffirm ethical commitments that they will not be doing the president's bidding, but will make judgments based on the law. Makes a record, maybe OLC issues a new opinion, at least you make Trump's AG get rid of that opinion in the sunlight. Second, push for pressure to pardon preemptively multiple people, maybe like Smith, although many of them may not accept such a pardon. Smith, as a career prosecutor, probably would disdain taking such a pardon. Next, push for executive orders to protect DOJ career officials who will be the ones who would be trying to hold the fort against corruption, the line prosecutors, FBI agents, and the like. Lastly, I want to take full advantage of the confusion that's going to be created by these multiple public hearings in Congress and simultaneous DOJ investigations. Good prosecutors hate parallel inquiries in Congress because it screws up their testimony, it screws up their witnesses. They might be given immunity in Congress. That gets messed up when there's a criminal charge. But the Congress really wants, under the Republican regime, to hold these hearings. And if DOJ is simultaneously trying to do investigations, that's going to be a big logjam mess. And actually, that kind of confusion is a good thing, because Jordan's going to want to shine a light, in his view, on the intention of DOJ officials. So he'll be calling Trump DOJ officials to talk about their pending cases, which they will. And that's going to just create a lot of confusion. Particularly when you add into this mix, if Matt Gaetz actually becomes the Attorney General, this is a guy who has no clue how the department runs, no clue how to actually manage prosecutions. All of that is going to really gum things up. So actually, there's some hope in that situation. All right, thanks for listening, and we will talk to you soon. Keep those replies and comments coming. Make sure you subscribe to our channel, and look forward to talking to you soon.
In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.